From the heart of Dubai, where tomorrow is being built today, to the world. Welcome to the CTO Show with Mehmet. Here, we redefine technology and reimagine possibilities. With Mehmet, delve into the riveting realms of AI, cybersecurity, and digital technology. Experience the thrilling highs and lows of startups. Immerse yourself in the spirit of entrepreneurship and witness the future of business innovation being written in real time. Now, without further ado, let's tune in and explore the future.
Hello and welcome back to a new episode of the CTO Show with Mehmet. Today I'm very pleased. Joining me from New Zealand, my friend Jean-Philippe Diel. Jean-Philippe, the way I love to do it on this podcast is I like my guests to introduce a little bit themselves, tell us about their journey, what they are up to, and then we can take the conversation from there.
That's awesome, Mehmet. Thank you for having me. We met at Token 2049, and I've been looking forward to this chat today. So my name is Jean-Philippe. I'm a sort of French New Zealander. I call myself a freewee normally. I've been in New Zealand for 22 years just this year. A little bit about my background. I started my career in FMCG. I quickly went back into tech because from a very young age, my passion has been tech. And I guess there's somewhere in the background a father that considered that wasn't exactly a real job. He thought that was more like a hobby. I did want at some stage to be an electronic engineer, and I kind of was steered towards business and things like that. So I ended up getting an MBA and working in business. And as soon as I could, I kind of veered back into tech. So I was part of the sort of mobile phone revolution. I probably am a little bit like a cat now. I've got about 6 lives behind me. I'm turning 55 this year. I was in my last corporate job, GM marketing for Samsung in New Zealand. And that's almost like a whole life ago because I left Samsung in 2008 after the Beijing Olympics. And I've worked for myself ever since. I've had a marketing agency, a distribution agency, did a lot of different things. Kind of everything was a bit of a sort of an experiment for me. It's more like finding what I could do, what I love to do, and what I also could do out of New Zealand, which was my country of choice at the time. And yeah, guess what? I'm still here. 2014, I was thinking with some friends about how we could use the Internet of Things and apply that to sports. And at the time, the ideas were vastly different from what we're doing today. But we thought about how we can strap athletes and sports people with loads of sensors and what could make sense to do. And I stumbled on something which I proposed the other guys, and the consensus wasn't there. We had loads of arguments, and so we disbanded at the time. I discovered the work of a German gentleman called Mr. Laban. And Laban is famous in the world of dance for choreography. And Laban inspired me because he basically solved in the 1900s the idea of ballet company A making a particular show, and how do I export that to ballet company B in a different town? And if you think about music, there is a music score, and you just give that to musicians, and they can read it, and they can play their version of it. With movement, it's extremely analog. You have a coach, you have someone next to you teaching you how to make movement. And Laban actually decided to create a language, a script, a way to describe movements, and it's sort of as much qualitative aspects than quantitative aspects. So he combined a series of symbols, etc. When I saw that, the movement script, I thought, a movement score, I should say, when I saw that, I thought to myself, well, that is digital. So if I can actually use tech to record someone's movement, then I should be able to take that sort of, common denominator of the movement. I call it common denominator, and because we all have different bodies, obviously, and I should be able to use that to teach someone else to make the same movement. I mean, as humans, if we look at a tall, skinny guy and a short, fat guy doing the same movements, we can look at it and do some pattern recognition thing and say, yeah, they're making the same movements. And I can say with confidence that it's correct or not correct, and that's what we use. Um, but how do you do that with motion sensors or cameras, or which technology you want to use? And that's the beginning of a very long rabbit hole, which brought me all the way to what we are doing today. So SymbionIQ is actually a two-part project. I founded SymbionIQ in 2020 with my own money, and so far we're still bootstrapped and building. And we're just recently started talking about a pre-seed round and looking for investment. The idea for SymbionIQ is that the health economy out there is not the healthcare economy, is more a sick care economy, and that there's a whole movement now, people wanting to increase health span and work on their longevity. And so I started thinking about data and how and what kind of infrastructure we needed to actually change the game and change that economy. Before I deep dive into what my vision is for that sort of infrastructure, I'll explain the link with this first part of movement. Naturally, when I thought about this idea of recording movement, very quickly it became obvious that there were two things critical for this to work. One was the actual data privacy side of things, because I'm a big advocate of data privacy, and my vision is that users should be in control and ownership of it. That's the first part. And so when I was thinking about how we were going to do an app and helping people record movement, train, etc., very quickly I thought there needs a back end that actually allows that. And I didn't have a solution. So that's when I started diving into Web3 and how the actual blockchain architecture offers different possibilities to build a backend that would be more compatible with what I wanted to deliver and what my vision was for users and data privacy in particular. So what we're doing today is building that backend and bootstrapping it with an app, which does what I'm talking about before. That app, I've got an example here in front of me. It's nearly completely built today. Sorry for the notifications, I'm going to keep popping up. Basically, it's a motion capture engine that allows you to put sensors on someone's body. They can content create their own lessons. So if you're a yoga teacher, physical activity trainer, you can put those sensors on your body, some IMU sensors. So a little bit of electronics, but very discreet and very simple. It's like elbow sleeves and knee sleeves, and allows you full motion or full body capture. And so you are live when you put that on. You press record on your phone and you make a dance or a move that you want to teach other people. And it converts that onto your digital self. And so you can see that movement. You can then edit. You can do a whole bunch of things on it, which is similar to what you would do when you edit a video. You can put voiceover. You can put different actions, different pop-ups to, particularly if you want to give an advice at a particular moment in the segment. You can have a pop-up video or a pop-up something that gives more sort of specific advice to the user. In a nutshell, it is a content creator tool for people to build their lessons and deliver them to the world. Now, the kind of benefit of that is from video, because today most of the stuff is done through video, is that you can actually rotate around and see the movement in its full, I was going to say glory, but you can see the movement in 360. So if you're unsure when you watch a video, normally how is the person doing it from behind? You can't tell. Well, with this kind of tool, you can actually go and study that movement in 360. Now, neuroscience tells us that when you do that, you're actually, projecting yourself, making the movement. You're actually understanding it in a spatial sense, which is super critical. And it accelerates your learning. It accelerates your ability to mimic that movement correctly. So that's the app that we're building today. In the back end, and it's a whole rabbit hole. Once you build that app on it, obviously you collect physical activity data. The idea is that you can augment that. Can augment it with data from your Apple Watch, data from your Garmin, data from your nutrition app, from your sleep monitoring, whatever device and quantified self devices you're using today. What that allows you to do is get a better picture of your health today. So our backend is going to be like a middleware layer for health, and I call it Linux for health. What we want is attract other startups to build on the same backend. Why? Because that allows you to have all the data points across your health, whether it's a mental health, whether it's a nutrition app, whether it's another physical activity app, etc., etc. Um, and now I could probably, unless you have a question at this stage, but I want to get into telling you a little bit why I think the sort of what I call the protocol network economy is better than platform economies.
Yeah, exactly. This was my other question to you, Jean-Philippe, because um, just a comment on what you explained just now is there's a saying: once an engineer is always an engineer. Even if you go do marketing, sales, whatever, you come back to the same place. I know from myself for a matter of fact, but yeah, like the idea, the concept itself of having this as a middleware, and what you just mentioned. Yeah, I would love to know why your vision went to this direction, into building a network.
Um, it's a series of those, right? Like I explained, 2014, 2015, I was just thinking of the motion training app and how we would do that. And because we didn't build it then, and the idea just kept traveling in my head, and I kept looking at other startups who were doing motion capture and things like that, and I kept thinking, this isn't going to work with taking people's data. There's got to be another way. And so I started thinking about Web3 in the midst of 2021, I think, looking at what was happening, and I mean, I was aware of blockchain, and I was looking at the Bitcoin stuff. Sadly, I didn't do anything then. I was always a bit on the sideline. Financial stuff has never been my strong forte. I'm always a bit risk averse, so I don't gamble with my money. So I did not run a Bitcoin farm or anything like that, but I was fascinated by the technology and what it could do. And that's really what I'm in here for. It's the stack. So um, if I just maybe give you a little bit of a rundown, what I think of today, what we have is what I call platform economies. Now, this is something that actually the listeners are interested. There's a beautiful book by Chris Dixon who talks about blockchains and Web3, and talks about that concept exactly of platform economies and protocol network economies. Now, what is blockchain? Blockchain is just a ledger, right? But what it enables is creation of value in sort of a peer-to-peer scenario. If you look at Facebook today, what Facebook is a platform. It's a platform economy. On a platform like Facebook or YouTube or anyone like that, basically it's the attention economy. It's about monetizing content, and you don't own that content. It's stored on Facebook or on YouTube or on. And if one day you breach terms or something happens, and they decide they will remove you from there, so you get banned, and you lose all your content. So for people who are doing e-commerce through Instagram or whatever other method, there's always a risk that you will lose all your followers from one day to the next because something happened and you get pushed out or you get logged out. I mean, you don't comply with the terms or something that you didn't realize, and it's sometimes it's been dramas, right, for people's businesses who are built on that concept. And most of these platform economies are actually really about metadata and monetizing the metadata and getting more understanding of the user behaviors and tracking, etc. And there's been loads of scandals around that. People didn't realize their data was getting used in such a way, etc., etc. And more, I think there is a global awareness that we don't quite like that. We don't quite like being tracked like that. We don't quite like that model. But unfortunately, and I get told regularly by VCs or people who are in that community, and they say, "Oh, don't worry, people will scroll down, they will tick the box, and they will give you all their data. You don't need to worry. Privacy, people have a concern for that, but when it comes to it, they just don't act on it. Doesn't matter. They don't care." And I hear that every day, literally. Now, I don't agree. I think it's a matter of choice, and there isn't an alternative out there. So yes, me first. I'm actually very transparent. A lot of my stuff is very open on the internet. You can read pages and pages and get bored about my life because I share a lot of stuff online. Um, and yeah, that's my choice, but I think that's wrong. But I'm a pioneer. I kind of like to test everything first day, and I know the consequences. But I just think that model has reached its use by date. Now, come the platform, the network protocol network economy. What is the protocol network economy? When you build on blockchain, your data belongs to you because you are actually using key pairs, wallet or something like that, and that encrypts your data, and you can actually put the user in the center of their health data in this particular case, because we're working on health data. So that also means that the user controls visibility and access. That means, take a use case of what happens with your health data with the doctor. We've got this weird conundrum where you go to a doctor and then they got a computer system and they write a whole bunch of things about you. And but the data is yours. They say data privacy, that's, it's your data, but it's hosted by the doctor. That also creates a whole bunch of rules around how to handle third-party data and what you can do and what you cannot do, etc. That's a parenthesis. But the reality is that data is, when you want it, that, oh, you need a copy, really? Why? How? uh, and it's really hard to get a copy. When you get a copy, it's in a weird format that you can't use. You can't really say, I want to transfer that into my own database and then mine it. No, that's the user's not supposed to do that. They're supposed to be dumb. They're supposed to not understand or want to understand, and they need to be guided by the hand with everything, so the doctor does it for you. Great, but we're now entering the age of AI and personal copilots, and people are getting smarter with those things. Yeah, and we want people to get smarter with those things. um so why is it so hard to access your own data now in a blockchain world? That doesn't happen. The data stays with you. It's with keys. When you go to your doctor, you open a window on your data. They enter stuff into your system. When you leave, you close the door, and the data stays with you. That data is in your property. Now you can choose to monetize it. You can choose to do a whole bunch of things, but then you get rewarded for it or you get paid for it. And so you can build a model now where users benefit from that data usage. And there are plenty of good ways to use data. And there's loads of very valuable research that can be done out there where the users can contribute their data, opt in, and get rewarded for sharing their data. But my main reason for thinking this is the right model. It's about having all the data in one place. Now, if you look at all these platform economies, what are they trying to do today? They get all your data. Why? Because they need more. They're very data hungry. Now, you can't put all your data everywhere unless you clone it everywhere. And in the age of AI, it means that someone's going to know more about you than you know yourself. That is where I start to think that's a little bit of a danger. Today, until that used to be, video surveillance was an example. Video surveillance, you might have hours and hours of data, but actually to exploit it, you need to sit there and watch it. Guess who hasn't got the time to do that? Nobody, right? I mean, if you run a retail outlet, and I have in my past, another life probably, you have all these cameras in the store to survey whether someone has taken a 20 cents note in the $20 note in the till. Well, guess what? You don't know when, because that takes about 3-4 seconds, and you have to watch a whole day to find where that was. Oh yeah, thank you. There was machine learning. Now you can actually monitor motion, find out what happened, but it's still hard. With AI, it'll pull out the one segment, say, here, this is when it happened. So great for surveillance, but it's also usable for a bunch of other things, which raise a bunch of red flags to me. So back to health, um, I want all the data in one place, but I don't agree with having platforms owning all the data about us, or about me, or about users in general. So I think it's better to build a different type of ecosystem where the data remains in the control of users, where they can get rewarded for it, and they can then have that AI copilot on all. Imagine jurisdictions and regulations apart. You start with DNA baseline. You start all your medical history. You then now have your full physical activity. You have all your biometrics through your watch, etc. Even potentially in the future, some devices that are not storing the data with Garmin or other people like that, but actually directly on chain or directly under your keys and encrypted properly. Then you can really have your AI copilot look at the full picture and say, Mr. Diel, your risk of heart disease is because of your genetics and your profile, etc. It's X%. With the excellent, changes that you've made to your lifestyle, the regular, the calorie restrictions, the physical activity, etc., your good sleep, we can now say with confidence that your risk is reduced by 10 points. So you've increased your health span of this many years. That's the world I want to work towards. And that's the ecosystem I want to build.
Jean-Philippe, one thing I think I repeated it, maybe not related to the healthcare specifically, but about the platform. So, and I keep asking this question, and I ask it for fellow even founders, because when they decide to build a complete system or piece of software on top of this platform, let it be like Meta or Facebook, let it be like uh, Amazon, let it be Twitter or X now. So, and OpenAI is another example. So I asked them, aren't you, I would not say scared, but worried that, you know, you're relying on a giant, and this giant can just unplug you any moment. And some people, they don't. I'm surprised, and it's good like you brought this point. Some people, they don't think about consequences in the future to be relying on these platforms. I'm not saying these platforms are devil or like bad
No,
in any mean, but like just to put it in mind, when it comes to something like health, I think, and I know exactly what you refer to, the scandals that happened before, to where, these guys, they know a lot of things about us. So, especially social media, if you use it, and I'm like you, I share a lot of things. Um, One guy told me hey, like you do a podcast as well, so that means even your voice, your videos are all over the place, and you know what they can do with that. I said, yeah, I'm aware of this. I'm hoping the technology would help me avoiding, any deep fake. But this is very important, Jean Philippe. Like, really, it's good that you brought this point. Now, it looks to me, Jean Philippe, that you touched base on some of the stuff, but there are more broken areas in the healthcare today. So data privacy is one thing, right? um, and democratizing the data is another thing. What other aspects? And I think when you were here in Dubai, you mentioned to me something also related to, you know, the broad ecosystem of the healthcare. So where do you see, the other challenges that you are trying currently to solve out with the Symphony?
Well, around the data, there's some obvious biases. If you ever worked with things like biobanks, there's a big gender bias, ethnic bias with biobanks, and it's a known thing, right? Um, there's some FDA investigation recently about sensors, because biobanks, basically is what people are using to train their algorithm. So you train on the data, but if the data isn't representative of the population you're going to address, then your algorithm is biased somehow because you haven't trained on the right data. Now, with the age of AI, we understand very, very clearly that we need to have two things with data: the right architecture and clean data, clean and well labeled, etc., representative of your target audience, etc. If you don't, then you're releasing a product which is accurate for 20% of the market, 30% of the market, but not everybody. And I don't give this some examples. The FDA is investigating the oximeters at the moment, the oximeter sensors, because on darker skin they give up to 32% incorrect results, higher heart rate. Well, that's a lot. That's a lot. So you've got all these oximeter sensors in Apple Watch, in Oura Ring, and Ultra Human, etc. And they're trained on well, maybe not Ultra Human because that's a product from India, but there's always the risk that they're trained on white American males, because that's where the massive amount of data, because data comes from whoever was willing to share, available, wanted to make money of it, or in the right sort of urban, demographic, etc. That fit. So there's biases in who volunteers in there already. So I guess my vision of a protocol network economy where we can put users in control of their data also mean that we can collect data from a much wider, we're crowdsourcing data, the ground up, from a much wider population, and more ethnically diverse, gender diverse, etc. And so my hope is that we eliminate these biases.
Yeah. Uh, Now, regarding this point and collecting the data from, of course, different resources, different places. So, two things come to mind here. The first one, in some geographies, there will be the challenge of the data sovereignty, right?
Yeah.
So how do you think you can tackle this? And the second one, because you mentioned also AI, Jean-Philippe, and when we mention AI, we talk about the models, right? So this model, where it will be sitting exactly? Is it like also running on this decentralized storage, and then it can, you know, analyze and get us the output we want wherever the data lives?
I don't. I will answer first the idea
Sure.
of the jurisdiction and then the sort of data sovereignty. The I'm making the argument that because we are using blockchain and because we're using pairs of keys, etc., that the users are actually in control of their data. We the legal model around data today is based on the fact that you're using a third party to manage that data. But law always catches up with technology. In this particular case, yes, there is a third party involved, but the third party doesn't see the data. The data is encrypted by the user keys and controlled by the user. So this is a little bit different, and it needs to be thought further, right? There's GDPR, there's HIPAA, there's all these regulations around different markets. I've studied them, and they all talk to the idea of storing your data with third-party software and how that is governed. They are meant to protect you, right? And rightfully, but I'd make the point that these are challengeable in the future because you can prove that users has full control. And this is a little bit like me putting the things in my own safe. Now, does it need to have rules around that to protect me from myself? Maybe. And I think there are different rules. They are more about key recovery or having ways to um, allow people for mistakes and things that could happen. Then and the Web3 industry is moving towards that. There's account extraction. There are ways now where you can recover your seed phrases and things like that. If people are not familiar with seed phrases in the blockchain, in a crypto sort of account, you're meant to have a seed phrase that secures your account, and then you have key pairs that wallet addresses, etc. People lose that sometimes. Well, it's so safe and so secure that if you lose it, well, you lose everything. So obviously, that's from a consumer experience perspective, that's not ideal. So there are other ways now to cryptographically and have different, like we have 2FA in the normal Web2 world, a two-factor authentication. We have different devices that can help us recover. We consider the phone as a secure enclave where we can use phone to unlock something, etc. So yes, there are these technologies are being sort of adapted to the world of Web3, and the the initial user experience of having all these complex systems is kind of getting a little bit, in the background now, and the way we are building our solution, user experience wise, they actually don't need to know that it's built on blockchain. From the app user perspective, they would onboard that just the same way as they would onboard a normal app, and they probably wouldn't realize that they have a crypto wallet open under, and then their data is actually stored on the blockchain and or decentralized in systems like IPFS Filecoin, where everything is actually distributed across servers and not in a single place. So um, that's to answer the sort of jurisdiction question. I think I'm very, very conscious of that. I mean, there's loads of regulation in the health space. In Germany, if you have a UI that gives you a red, green, orange symbols on something, it's meant to be like advice, and then you can't give advice, so you get a license for that. So we know that we're going to start in jurisdictions that are maybe a little bit less
Mm-hmm.
restrictive, and then we are going to grow from there. And that's why we were in Dubai and seriously looking at potentially setting up in Dubai, because I felt the environment there was very much focused on innovation, and there was a big demand, even from a government perspective, to look for different ways, and thinking outside the box is what I felt. It doesn't mean unregulated. There needs to be regulation in many ways, but there's also a more sort of flexible playing field where it's we try and we see, and then we put regulation where there really is need, not like put all the regulations and stumper innovation. So that answers, I hope, your question on
Yes.
regulation.
Yeah, definitely, Jean-Philippe. And yeah, to your point, just from my side, yeah, Dubai, they are trying to do this. Let's try to innovate, and then we will figure out, like, do proper regulation on that. So they don't want to ban the creativity on the cost of you know getting something really that can help people. So yeah, so that answers, and it's good to know, because when I even thought about it, and I asked it on purpose, and this is for the audience. guys, if you use any of the social media, your data probably is not living within your
Yeah.
country. Yeah. So it's living. You don't know actually. No one knows where the data is living. So this is very very important point there, Jean-Philippe. I asked you about the LLM model, and because no, of course, we don't have to go into too much the technical details, but we're talking about a marriage, I would call it, between the blockchain and distributed data, which is also private and secure, and to the getting the AI part of it. So how you're imagining that part to be done?
Imagining is the right word there because I kind of have to remind you that we're still bootstrapped and
Right.
looking to raise a pre-seed round. So this is very much architecture in my head. At this stage, we have not built the backend platform yet, but we do have a very clear plan on what we want to do, and we've identified partners and people that we want to work with. We've validated the stack. We figured out the feasibility study, so we're ready to rock and roll as soon as we get funding there. But on the point of AI, it's a very interesting point, and I've been very attentive to what happens recently with Apple, for example. Apple's in my mind another big corp, right? And so, but they are. Um, Not that they don't gather data, loads of data, of course, like everybody else. But they are a bit more conscious about this problem. And I was really curious to see how they were going to tackle this relationship with OpenAI, for example. And I spent quite a bit of time dissecting the architecture that they were putting in place and the local models that run on the phone. And I can say with confidence that they validated a lot of the stuff that I was thinking of doing and what I have in my head. I believe that the only way to do this is to actually run a small local model on your hardware device, more your phone, your tablet, etc., and have it talk to a bigger centralized name. Now, there's protocols and ways to do this called federated learning. Federated learning and gradient sharing, if you want to look that up, for those who are interested, are interesting ways to have smaller models or distributed models work together across a network. Um, which means normally what you do is inference, you have weights when the compute happens, when the model's learning some stuff. You can actually distribute those weights and update the weights of all the smaller models on your network through a centralized LLM, which will never see the actual data. All it will see is weights and inference data. So there is some cases, and I'm learning also, there are some cases where data can leak through, but it seems to be quite an interesting architecture in terms of having the data stay at the local level. We call Edge AI, and run that there, and have a central LLM, update all the way. So for our application, what we think is that we need a bunch of things. We need a way to architect the data, store all the data, and we can do this in user session, and we can back the data up on decentralized methods like IPFS Filecoin. Um, and we can have what's called a RAG. It's a retrieval algorithm. So it's like a model within the model that is tasked to fetch the data for you and prepare like a context window for the LLM to run on. Think about, if you're looking at your health, you want to pull out your sleep, your nutrition, you want to pull out the related medical data on a particular question that the user might have, and or the right relevant history that you want to pull out. So it would retrieve that data in a user session. That user session will then be, once that session is closed, that user session is like an ephemeral container. That user session will get scrapped and deleted. The data is back where it belongs, backed up, and all you're keeping is the decentralized storage, encrypted correctly, etc. So I am very much studying that decentralized architecture of having local edge AI updated by a central model. To answer your
That's very
question,
yeah, that's very interesting. And to your point, as you mentioned at the beginning, so this is why you're raising the funds now, but it looks very very promising. And I know for a fact, because for you know people who they can go back to the introduction when Jean-Philippe was showing us the demo. So there is a space, seems also, Jean-Philippe, to also integrate, or let's say have the extendable reality part also as well within the product, right? Because when you showed us on the phone and it worked perfectly, I saw it, by the way, live, not not only on this recording. So if I have my VR set, so even like from learning perspective, that could help me, in learning the move, and getting a better, and maybe advising me to do the movement in this way rather than that way. Because I remember you were explaining to me also that maybe the move can fit someone who's like this much tall rather than someone who's that much tall, and it might fit someone who's that heavy in weight perspective rather than someone who's like why heavy,
we
right?
we adjust it to your anatomy.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, but back to the VR point and the extendable reality point. I'm sure like you also have in mind some integration that would be working. You mentioned Apple, and yeah, Apple couple of weeks back, they announced their AI strategy. For some people, it was disappointment. For other people, it was the best route to go to. So, but how you're imagining, the integration with the extendable reality? And I think you have something to show me. Uh-huh. Here you go.
That's an Apple Vision Pro. Um, yeah, we are looking very much at how we can integrate our app and I'm talking about the motion capture training app on Apple Vision Pro. We're still in development phase on that. It will need a bit more time before we can release that. My vision is really that um, we need to have the your digital self standing next to you, showing you how to do in the room next to you. So um, one thing I forgot to mention is that our hardware provides haptic feedback.
Mhm.
Haptic feedback, it means it buzzes you and taps you and vibrates you. That's also one of the reasons why we've gone down the route of actually electronic hardware rather than looking at, and we have studied that. Vision AI, for example, people say, oh, why don't you have the phone in front and then you use the camera? And I've seen all these things that is possible these days. It is, but not really. Actually, most of the camera vision hardware solutions are using what I call a 2D mesh. They're just picking up a few points in the image and extrapolating from there. It's still very challenging from a depth perspective, and it is really subject to a lot of issues with obstructions. If you have a body part in front of another body part, it's hard to guess what's happening behind, and it's dependent on camera sort of angle to lighting conditions, etc., and your internet connections, because a lot of these work with a cloud. So you're
Right.
sending photos of the videos of the lady in bikinis to the cloud with all the risks that are involved with that, to have it computed and brought back to your phone. Um, I don't find that model satisfactory today.
Mhm.
I do think that it's definitely got legs in the very close future because it's moving very, very fast. So I'm quite sure that in 2 or 3 years we will have a valid solution there. But we can't launch today with that technology. IMU sensors are way cheaper now, and they are agnostic to your body shape or looks. All we transfer to the cloud for compute, if we need to, is actual bone positions. So no, it's a lot less risky from a privacy perspective. So back to the Apple Vision Pro or VR devices in general. My vision is really that you more and more we're going to work with our digital selves. Our
Yeah,
digital selves is a copy of ourself where we can actually see things it's always easier to give advice to someone else, right? Because you can see
yes,
them, you can't see yourself. You need a mirror, and then it kind of permutates, and you got these mirror neuron inversion problems. Um, Here, you can see yourself, you can see what's right, you can see what's wrong. You can actually correct yourself. You get haptic feedback, which buzzes you, taps you, stops you before you make a mistake and injure yourself. In my opinion, the best way forward. And yeah, it needs to move with the tech and with its time as well. Like, GoPro started with a particular tech, and it developed a whole ecosystem of
right.
accessories to adjust to all the rabbit holes and the different habits of users, etc. That's where I see us going somewhere with Symbionic Labs and the hardware part of things. I see us developing an ecosystem of devices, not just what we're doing today, but VR headset, and maybe one day a camera system, and maybe one day other accessories that you can strap up to a tennis racket or a baseball bat, or you can actually bring your 3D gym machine into your environment and climb on it and see yourself paddling away on an exocycle or something like that. Why? It's totally possible.
Yeah.
And
So
so that's the environment I want to create.
yeah, great. Like you mentioned, about having a digital twin, and I mean, it is a healthcare digital twin. I mean, like something that can show me uh, how, from healthcare perspective, I look like, or what should I do to enhance things, or which fantastic. And I think Jean Philippe, like the thing, what the vision, I mean, for you, it tap a large market, and so because you know you have the part which is for the creators, right? So to show us how to do the movement, you have the part that can do the measurements, and from the sensors that you just talked about, and
Mm.
get the feedback to the healthcare providers. So how big is that market, Jean Philippe? And I know it's huge, but I want to hear that from you.
Um, I've actually narrowed it down to the digital fitness side of things. It's 600 billion. It's growing at 30% CAGR, so it'll be massive in 2027, 2028, be 30 billion. Um, And yeah, there's loads of subsets. I mean, obviously, the healthcare market itself is bigger, but I look at it as being sick care. So I'm interested in the actual health span longevity market. That's growing. It's got a lot of different subsegments. Now you've got all these influencers in that space that are making headways, like Brian Johnson, David Sinclair, um, uh, just to mention two of them. That you got people like Huberman Labs, who are really famous podcasts, and are also have an amazing following of people. I mean, my Bibles in that space is books like Outlive by Peter Attia. It's a really amazing book, and it's very inspiring. He talks about medicine 3.0, and it's a heart surgeon or a cancer surgeon who's now converted to helping people increase their health span. Right, I mean, his definition is big conservative in the space. He's not a biohacker. People talk about biohacking these days,
Right.
but the reality of that space is we can engineer health now, today. We
True.
have the technology to engineer health. What is lacking is data about yourself. You don't know yourself very well. We still have blanket advice for a lot of stuff. The only way to solve this is Symbionic, the actual middleware layer that allows you to bring all the data in one place so you can run the AI on this, get your health copilot to advise you what you need to do next, what works for you, not what works for the neighbors or the latest fad, the latest diet, because some of that stuff doesn't work for some people. You discover it yourself, right? Very much a lot of it is still experimental.
Right. And I think also we discussed this like offline when you were here in Dubai. So the other thing is how much money a government they spend on healthcare, right? And this amount of money that goes And you mentioned something very interesting, Jean-Philippe. And I was reading an article the other day about, the whole trend of the longevity and, why people became like interested about it. And to your point about data, so the way medicine, I'm not a doctor, by the way, I didn't study medicine, just for people to know. So, but because, you know, I was reading an interesting article why sometimes, doctors say, hey, like if you eat this, you can lose weight, or if you do that, you can avoid, heart diseases. Now, the fact is, like, it's like kind of a when you do the survey, and if you take like small sample, with the 20 people, how much accurate that would be? If they tell you like, yeah, 60 people of people, or 70% of people who do this, they 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 will end up with that. 20 people is nothing, right? And then even 100, 1,000. And the reason is like there's this gap in the market. To your point, John Philippe, like it ended up like the lack of data. And even if they have the data, it's like kind of kept it private, same as the concept you mentioned
Mm.
about the social media. So they keep it for themselves. They don't want to share it with anybody. Even they don't accept to sell the data as feeds. So for you, you're talking here about something that can benefit from government perspective. Decrease the cost. And my friends in the US, they tell me about the crazy amount of money that goes to healthcare. Same
Well,
here, by the way, in
US
this
is the biggest country in healthcare spend.
exactly. So uh, that's really really like it's a big vision, Jean-Philippe. How much actually you're planning to raise, or I know like you are already in the phase, but like how much you need to get the version 1 complete and out?
Mm. I'll come back to that. I just want to. I'm not a doctor either, right? But I do speak to a lot of doctors, and we've got people who are medical and healthcare experts on our board of advisor. So what I can say is from the US is it's the biggest spend, and it's by far definitely not the healthiest country. So that just should tell you a little bit about that. Um, I think, sorry, I'm losing my track a little bit. Um, if you if you look at the, sorry, I'm just come back, come back on
No,
that.
sh- yeah. So we're talking about how big the market is, and like about your vision, and the amount you were raising, but you wanted to go back that in the US it's the biggest healthcare market,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. No, you were saying some interesting things around the cost
Not
of
been.
sick care.
Yes, exactly,
and
exactly.
and you introduced governments and things like that. There's one thing I wanted to say there is that we very much think that we would like to be would like to talk to governments to actually see if our solution could be implemented as part of their stack, because I think it's a big concern, healthcare costs in many countries, and it's a very complex ecosystem out there. There's doctors, there's hospitals, there's insurance companies, there's loads of different platforms, but somewhere governments are on the paying end of all this. And there are ways to think outside the box and go straight to users, I think, and uh, bypass some of that bureaucracy in between. So my hope one day, and we're not ready for that today, but my hope one day is that our stack could be one of the options that government can select from to actually
Hmm.
recommend users to stay healthier longer. Now, you said how much do I need to raise, and then you said, how realistically this is such a big hairy goal. Let's bring it back to what's realistic today. I'm totally with you. Definitely. I mean, what we have today is what we've got baked is an app which is a content creator tool for
Hmm.
people to build their lessons and improve their physical sort of remote training solution. Remote training, let's call it like that. The remote training solution using 3D and motion captures. Um, What we are offering at the back end is an architecture for data collection and data processing. It's a little bit like a gamification engine for health intervention. Some people have
Right.
said you're like a TikTok for healthcare. That's a very big simplification, and I don't know that I like TikTok much, so I'm not sure I would use that phrase exactly, but yeah, it's somewhere way to simplify. Um, I don't think we can do this alone.
Sure.
So my goal is to work with partners. My goal is to find other startups who want to build on the same vision of ecosystem. So I'm looking for a nutrition app. I'm looking for a mental health app. I'm looking for maybe a doctor's appointment app, or people who are working in that space are offering innovative and interesting solutions, but are conscious that data should be in the hands of the users rather than in another silo.
Right.
So I'm offering that, and then well, let's find 4 or 5 people like that, and let's build that ecosystem together as like founding members to build this ecosystem. I really think that's the way. Now, I today we're going to build a proof of concept, a backend to support our app. So we
Mm-hmm.
will have some of the bones of that, and we have some interesting model. In a nutshell, that ecosystem is what? It's different modules, right? A module
Right.
for a social layer, a module
Mm-hmm.
for AI and machine learning compute, a module to store your data in an encrypted and decentralized way, a module for monetization of your data. And we are talking partnerships already with people like Ocean Protocol. They
Mm-hmm.
are already a monetization engine for AI data on Web3. So they're marketplace, so you can monetize your data through them. So we're talking to them about how we integrate that into the picture. Um, what else do you want in there? I mean, we have governance model because you're building a network, so you need governance and protocol, maintenance, etc. So we're looking at a DAO structure for that because we want to give that protocol to the actual community. Think about it as a cooperative, right? Now, I
Right.
always come back to this image. In New Zealand, we have something called Federa. It's a cooperative. It's the farmers getting together to sell the milk. Why? Because individually farmers the power for marketing and all these things. They don't have the knowledge. They are smaller, and they want to focus on producing, but they join a cooperative that does all that work for them.
Mm-hmm.
So my vision is that. So if you're, a health app builder, you want to join the cooperative, and
Right.
we maintain the network, offer the network for you. And so it's in the hands of the community. Symbiotic Labs will build that back end and we hand it over to the community for the community to continue building, like Linux. Linux is the child of Linux storage, but it's actually gone a life of its own, and it's got
Right.
different versions, but it's got a core that gets debugged and looked at, and it's trusted because people know that you can't hide anything in there because everybody's looking. The many pairs of eyes over it, and it's
Right.
trusted. So that's kind of what I like about this idea is to put that those modules, that infrastructure out there in the open source. And it's my vision of it is a non-profit. It's that all it does is automate things, distribute revenue, automate things, and govern that the progress, make sure that we're not breaching data privacy, we're not breaching our promises to the users, etc., etc. That's why we would expand ourselves from it so that we can create what I called, credible neutrality. Credible neutrality is Symbiotic Labs is a customer of that entity, and that's all it is.
That's
That entity
great.
now belongs to the community. So
Fantastic,
that's the
Jean-Philippe.
that's what we want to build. So right now, we'd like to raise 3.5 million US. I get to the number in the end, and that actually is for growing the team by 5 people, delivering the actual hardware software part of our motion creation lab. So the remote training tool. It's called NeoMove, and the hardware is called NeoTracker, and the backend platform is called NeoXR. So it's got a Neo feel to it. Yeah, that'll take us to a go-to-market launch. So we're still pre-seed. This is a pre-seed round.
Amazing. Finally, Jean-Philippe, and to people get in touch, and maybe if someone maybe also interested to invest, how they can reach out to you.
Well, I'm very, very, very easily findable on the internet. I put there at SymbionIQ. That's actually the handle on Twitter. It's a handle on Telegram. It's the handle on everything. I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me and DM me on LinkedIn very easily. You can go to www.symbionic.com. That is our website. There's a bit of a blurb there, and then you can actually register to be in the early bird group. So people who are interested in receiving offers and knowing when we're ready to launch and things like that, they can just join that list.
That's great, Jean-Philippe. Like it's one of the episodes that is rich, 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 rich. Not only in ideas, but also like actionable insights within the healthcare. And what you're building is really something. I believe it's needed. It's not like just ambitious idea. So it's something that all we need. It's a pain, because everyone wants to be healthy at the end of the day, and everyone wants to live more and want to see like their grand son and granddaughters and stay in healthy shape. They don't want to rely on you know someone to help them when they become older. They want to stay in good shape also as well. So this is why personally I believe this is a great and huge need in this. And thank you for sharing this. And I'm sure, like hopefully, um, maybe through this podcast, but you are active, very active on LinkedIn. I know this, and very active on the internet in general. So I'm pretty sure that you're gonna get the support you're looking for, Jean-Philippe. And this is usually how I end my episode. So this is for the audience. If you just discovered this podcast by luck, thank you for passing by. I hope you enjoyed. This is really one of the you know greatest and greatest episode. Oh, I like all my episodes, of course, but this is really special because I am, versed in healthcare and making people's life more healthy in general and better. So if you like this episode, subscribe to the podcast, share it with your friends and colleagues. And if you are one of the loyal followers who keep coming and sending me their messages and comments and suggestions, thank you for doing that. Keep doing this, please. I like to read all your suggestions. And as I say always, we'll meet again very soon. Thank you. Bye bye.
Hit that subscribe button, share the show with your tech-savvy friends and fellow entrepreneurs, and leave us a review on your favorite podcast app. Your support means the world to us.